Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks and another match of Beyond All Reason, where today what I've got for you here is a best of 5 series that was played between two top level commanders where apparently there was a little bit of a wager on the line. Yeah, apparently a little bit of a match with something incentivizing both of these commanders to play their very best. According to the commander that sent on over these replays, dinner was on the line here. Yes, the loser of the best of 5 series has to pay for dinner that evening, and so I can absolutely guarantee you beyond a shadow of a doubt that these commanders are going to be playing their absolute heart out. So without further ado, here spawning as the red team leader in the first match of this best of 5, it's going to be none other than Victor 12. Victor 12 clocking in at 40 open skill in the dual game mode, going to be going up here against the blue team leader, and she goes by the name of Alexi 5000. Alexi going to be playing as an Armada commander in blue, spawning on the default position here for Istis Crack, whereas our red team leader here, our red team hero, it's going to be Victor 12 spawning as a core commander on the default position here on the southern side of Istis Crack. Now, interestingly, both of these commanders are going to be going into bot labs, which is very cool to see. And, well, as we've seen recently in the 1v1 series that we have watched, we've watched the Omega League series, and I've covered a couple of other 1v1 games here and there. Armada is looking almost unstoppable in the 1v1 era, at least when it comes to bots. In a bot versus bot trade, at least for right now, the pawns have been looking stupendous. Now, they did get a little bit of a nerf, and I haven't checked out a 1v1 game that featured Armada bots prominently. We've watched those Legion games just last cast, but this is going to be a good opportunity to see if those Armada bots really have been nerfed out of favor here in the 1v1 scene, or if they're still just as powerful and just as dangerous as they were a mere one patch ago. Already, though, we've got a Constructor headed out on the field here. I like this play from Alexi, going to be going into her first metal expansion on the right-hand side, and then it looks like the Constructor is going to be heading southwards here, and I wonder, are we going to move? Okay, yeah, so taking a more conservative approach here. Rather than moving this Constructor out into the left, out into the field, we're just going to go ahead and use it to take this high ground, and you may as well, because obviously no vehicles can get up on this high ground. It means that if you're going up against vehicles on the other side of the map, you are going to be safe. Now, that's not going to be the case, as I'm certain Alexi has spotted at this point. Yeah, we'll have ran these ticks around and discovered that there are actually a couple of bots out on the field, and we'll have known now at this point that there are, well, that high ground isn't going to be as safe of a space as probably once imagined, but at least for the time being, focusing on getting that energy up and running, and then those mexes is going to start boosting that economy very, very quickly. So, in a weird way, Cortex has now been put on the back foot. Not in this map particularly, but just in this matchup. Recently, Cortex has been, well, for basically all time, Cortex has been the aggressor, trying to get units across the field here, trying to do a bunch of damage, but now Cortex has to play super, super defensively in the early game because their units don't necessarily keep up with those early game units from Armada. It means that Armada is in the hot seat to find some damage, and so you can see we've got ticks across the map here looking for any value they can find, and then we've got the grunts running around trying to play defensive against all this. Nice little surround right here, though. Yeah, we do have grunts moving in. They will get the nice surround. Wow. They get the surround on the pawn, but it still manages to trade itself out here. All right, so a grunt's coming in at 43 metal, and the pawn's coming in at 56 now? 54 metal. They're very expensive, yeah. At least relative to the T1 units. They're very, very expensive, but for good reason. They're also extremely powerful. At least right now, those pawns have been doing lovely work. They've been doing a wonderful job of blasting apart some of these grunts here, and we will see, again, a nice little surround. Oh, but man, those pawns are good. Yeah, the grunts get caught out here, get fully surrounded by the pawns, and there's 3 grunts going down for a single pawn. Already some huge action. Now we do have a hero grunt that has managed to make it into the backline, and it will find the mexes here. Wouldn't even mind a self-D to try and chip away at that pawn even more, the grunt rather. Getting my names all mixed up here. It will find the con here. Will we get the kill? Ooh, we have defensive units, but not in time. The Constructor does go down. That's a huge pick right there for the red commander. Definitely needed that damage on the other side of the map so that the defense on this side is going to be, well, a little bit easier, right? Focusing on the units at home means the units on the other side aren't going to be microed quite as heavily. And now it does mean, oh, a little bit of a stare down right here. It does mean that for the time being, all of the aggression from the blue commander, Alexi, will be shut down right now. Not bad. We are going to have to rebuild those Constructors, so that also takes a bunch of metal as well. You can see Con has already been sent out in this direction. Wouldn't be surprised, though, if we see, yeah, an early Resbot sent out here. And I wonder if we're going to use this to resurrect. So, resurrecting the Constructor right here is nice, because then it means that essentially you can start constructing from that angle as well. And then, you know, it's almost as if it hadn't died. You miss out on a bunch of mexing time, but you don't necessarily lose the value of the constructor. It's just delayed quite significantly. But you can see the metal income here for Victor is looking quite nice. A 30% metal income right there as I, you know, make the metal dance. Yeah, definitely quite good. I mean, that 30% really, you can think about it as going in any direction, right? So that 30% could be army value, it could be defense value, it could be, you know, it could be more metal extractors on the field as well. There's a lot of different ways that 30% metal advantage can be expressed on the field, but right now, at least for the very time being, it looks like largely it's going to be the defense value, which is infinitely higher for the Red Commander because, of course, he has 1 defense, whereas Alexi does not have any, so... yeah, you know, until she gets a laser turret up and running, which is coming up and running right now, it's going to be an infinite, asymptotically infinite approximation in the advantage here for the Red Commander. Constructors do find, pawns do find a constructor over here. Ooh, and they managed to get the kill. Nicely done right there. Okay. A retaliatory strike right there as these 2 lovely pawns did manage to snag the kill on that constructor, as well as, of course, killing all the metal extractors. So that's quite nice, right? Again, that denies a whole bunch of the aggression right here, and it means that suddenly, yeah, we have to be a little bit more careful. We have to be conscientious about putting units out on the field. I'd love to see a Resbot coming up here at this point. Looks like Victor plans to replace that constructor. We're just going for a 7 grunt, 1 constructor queue right here, just going to be continuing to build up those forces. There's a nice catch over here, though. Yeah, 1 grunt manages to make it through, but with that LLT up and running, it will shut that down. And now we have, well, 1 grunt moving in. Yeah, the radar tower's in trouble. Does it get the mechs? Oh, it just barely gets the mechs. Pawn's running right on by. But definitely got its value, right? Denying that metal, or rather that radar tower is really, really nice. Shuts down a bunch of the vision right here and effectively just, yeah, look at the vision here for Alexi. All of a sudden, with that radar tower down, there was basically no vision whatsoever. Yeah, giant force on this northern side goes unscouted until it's a little too late. Now, mind you, these pawns are going to trade out phenomenally. That was just a beautiful shape for that engagement to take, but it was definitely a rough one because now these are headed towards the backline. We need to see this constructor moved away right here. It's not responding yet, but if these grunts can manage to kill this con in the backline, it's going to be a huge pain. Nice surround right there for the red grunts as well. Okay. That is a gigantic push right through the middle of the map. We do have the hero grunt in the backline still doing a ton of damage, but now these grunts have found the main production center. Just like that, Alexi is beset upon by a whole bunch of those laser lights blasting apart the infrastructure right here. And just like that, the energy infrastructure is crumbled. Very nicely done. Follow-up grunt going to kill the metal extractors over there, and these will move into the backline as well. Very difficult to deal with all this, and of course, the only way to efficiently rebuild your energy from, well, having 0 energy production is to go into those solar panels, and those take a lot of time, and they're very, very metal expensive to build. Means not very efficient. Oh, now there's a grunt in the backline here again. Yeah, this is GG. Definitely a GG moment right here for Alexi. Because the energy has been crippled and now there's no defensive forces either, it means you can't really go for Resbots. It means that the, yeah, the playstyle here is very, very limited after this. And with these pawns still running, or grunts rather, still, well, kind of a mixture of both, running around in the back line, it's going to be very difficult to claw back in. But okay, we've got the Resbot out, and we're going to continue to try and resurrect as much as we can right here. There go those grunts. The grunts take out the Resbot, though. Yeah, beautiful aggression from the Red Commander. And you can see that map control really easily spiraled out of control right there. As all of a sudden, now we have grunts on every lane, blasting down as many of these pawns as possible, and they don't really have to be efficient about it. Because the metal production is so gigantic, it really doesn't matter how efficient you are, because at the end of the day, more stuff beats less stuff in an RTS. Yeah, GG is called. Alexi going to go ahead and blow her comm. The slow GG right there from the blue commander, and we will head on into game number 2. Game number 2, and spawning in the exact same positions here, Alexi and Victor are going to be going head-to-head. With Victor with a point on the board, it's actually got me thinking. That's definitely a widget that I would love to see. With some sort of scoreboard that I could adjust over here on the right-hand side, put a points on, you know, either of the 2 characters. Obviously very difficult to do in, you know, a 1v1, but maybe a little tag down here, right? Just a little box that down here that could put a point on the board. If I could right now, it'd be 1 point in the favor of Victor here. It'd be something like this. There we go. 1 point on the board right here for Victor. Obviously, in a best of 5, it means you have to win 3 of these games. And so it does mean that, yeah, either of these commanders still has a shot. But it's a mental game for sure, right? You essentially are a point down on the board, and it means, okay, well, I have to play the most solid strategy possible, but I don't know if there really is a better strategy in 1v1 right now than going for Armada bots. So excited to see what Alexi is going to do to adaptively change the playstyle here. But on the other side of the field, Victor has gone ahead and gone for Armada as well. Now, obviously, these commanders don't know the race that the other commander is going to pick until they scout, right? So this is still a little bit of a question mark on Alexi's side of the map. Victor, of course, knows that they've changed the races, but there's not really a good reason why Alexi would go ahead and change races. Armada has been dominant, and so far, I mean, despite that beautiful grunt win, Armada still feels a lot better, and I think a lot of that came down to some very nice early game trades that went on for Victor that eventually scaled into late game trades. But it is funny, right, to see that the the Cortex commander is pivoting into Armada despite winning with Cortex is so funny to me. But anyways, Victor apparently feeling a little bit left out, or having a little bit of FOMO playing against those pawns right there. Gonna go ahead and build some of his own. Alexi will finally spot this. We'll see with the tick headed across the map right here. Like ships in the dark, they pass each other. These ones a little bit more active as they try and fire at each other with those little welding lasers they've got attached to their schnozzle. This time, however, wind speed so low. Wind speed was extremely low in the last game as well, but it will be very, very low in this one as well. Nicely done, though. Pawn does come out of the laboratory just in time to clean up that tick. Meanwhile, we do have one headed around on the right-hand side, but this pawn will be moving into position to try and defend this constructor, and hopefully the metal extractor here as well. Oh, this con over here is a little bit exposed. Now, constructors can technically kill ticks. Like, if you start reclaiming a tick almost immediately, yep, there we go. Nice micro right there from the blue commander. Will start reclaiming that tick, and it will win. It's a slow and very tedious process, but eventually, you do win the reclaim battle. I think it was, I want to say it was Barcast. It was somebody out there on the in the Beyond Armies and Commentators world called that a citizen's arrest one time, and I think that is hilarious. If it wasn't Barcast, if I misattributed that saying, I deeply apologize. Feel free to leave a comment. If you happen to be watching this video, feel free to leave a comment, because it is hilarious, and I think about it every single time that I watch one of these constructors deconstruct a tick or anything like that. But at least in this case, it will be a win right here for the constructor. Another tick makes it past on the right-hand side, and we do have a whole swarm of ticks moving on the left-hand side. Nice micro right here from the blue commander, though, has the pawns in position alongside reinforcing ticks, and so will be able to brush that away quite nicely, keeping the constructor safe, and maybe more importantly, keeping those metal extractors safe. It's easy, like I said, it's easy for that 30% advantage to get put into economy, and suddenly 30% turns into, oh, I don't know, 60%, and that turns into 120%, and so on and so forth. And it's very easy to snowball out of control. And Beyond Our Reason, especially, is a game that definitely features very, shall we say, consequential pushes and pulls. Like, you either win with a big push or you lose with a big push, but it's very often that we'll see a single play making the difference in a game like this. As we saw before, the aggression with those grunts, taking out all of the wind turbines here and essentially shutting off the lights for Alexi suddenly meant that she couldn't really do very much on the field. It's essentially a GG kind of a play. I would like to see a better investment in light laser towers and other static defenses. I feel like it makes a lot of sense because of the T1 aggression that we've seen in the last game. It's something that I don't get the opportunity to cover all too often, right? I mean, I cover those 8v8 games, and you can sort of see in the span of a game, commanders reacting to each other, as the game goes on. In 1v1s, though, you have that time to really think about it in between the match and sort of overanalyze your own gameplay and figure out where you need to improve, what needs to change, what can go up and what can go down, that sort of a thing. And one of those changes that I think I'd love to see right here is just a slightly larger emphasis on static defense, right? It's inefficient to build static defense unless it denies the death of your economy. And in that case, it's very, very efficient to build static defense because it means that you're losing a whole lot less over time. It means that you're going to be in a much better position. Obviously, these commanders operating at 1,000,000 thoughts per second, trying to keep their bases alive, trying to macro, trying to micro. It's a lot of work here. One thing that I love to point out that always blows people's minds, especially if you're coming over from StarCraft, for instance, is the APM here. For Alexi, it's going to be 33 actions per minute, and for Victor 12, it's going to be a whopping 26. If you're a fan of StarCraft, especially if you're a fan of pro StarCraft, seeing, APMs below the hundreds has got to feel like a bit of a twist. With repeat rates and, action spam and all sorts of stuff like that, StarCraft APMs can easily get into the hundreds, multiple hundreds. Some of the top pros up, around 600 APM. It's not uncommon to see Zerg players like Cyril, for instance, playing at about 600 to 700 APM when they're, microing these very complicated compositions, things like infestors and not swarm hosts. What are they called? Infestors and what are they called? I'm forgetting the flying Zerg unit. Not that it matters for Beyond All Reason, but anyways, the Wow, I really am drawing a blank. Anyway, pawns in the backline here. They do find a bunch of wind turbines. This is actually a huge pickoff right now because the wind speed is so high that it really is the critical infrastructure for generating energy right now for the red commander. So even just a couple of wind turbines that were killed right there was, I do believe, about 100 energy per second. Down the drain right now for Victor 12. It's going to be a nightmare to try and replace all that if all the energy goes down. Now, it does look like the defense will be solid. The pawn's cleaning all this up quite nicely. Another metal extractor goes down, but ultimately the losses there were mitigated quite well. And obviously you can also use these early constructors to go rebuild all this, right? Rebuilding infrastructure is better if you already have the constructors from the early game. LLT already up and running, and now going to start lasering down the pawns that are headed across the map right here. Ooh, self-D. I'd love to see a self-D. We're going to try and repair micro, but there's just too many pawns. And those pawns, you really don't need as many as you once did in order to actually blast down LLTs. You can really run by with pawns at about 4 to 5 pawns. You start to get really effective trades against LLTs, which is kind of interesting. It almost shakes up that early game quite a lot because, well, previously you really needed a lot more of an investment to crack those static defenses, whereas nowadays, with their little flashlights built into their eyes, I suppose, gives them the vision that they need to target those weak points a little better and allow them to crack through those static defenses a whole lot quicker. I am making lore up as I go, by the way. Please take that all with a grain of salt. I love to come up with random lore on the spot. It's, you know, maybe one of my trademarks. Loads of build power up and running right here for Alexi. She's gone heavily into those construction turrets, and I don't mind it at all. Obviously, the construction turrets help you scale that economy quite aggressively, and I think that's a wonderful opportunity right now. Building a bunch of solar panels, using those construction turrets, I mean, you know, we all know how I feel about solar panels, but if it's your only option to spend that metal, then by all means, put that metal into solar panels just so that at the very least it's being useful. There's no point, especially in a 1v1, but even in an 8v8 game, in having metal in the bank. It's just a waste of resources. Putting it on the field and making it do something for you is always going to be much more efficient. That being said, Victor 12 doing a great job of denying a bunch of this. A slower, slightly steadier expansion pattern here. You can see just kind of going for safer routes here, focusing more on the defense than the offense, and trying to keep the core metal extractors alive. Not Cortex, but rather the, you know, the necessary, you know, core component metal extractors up and running, rather than giving up any of them, whereas Alexi has taken a little bit more damage, but has also expanded a little more aggressively to deal with that damage. And I think that's a lovely playstyle, right? I mean, that is a Armada playstyle to a T, definitely focusing more on like the swarming aspects of sending these T1s across. LLTs here doing a great job against the pawns. At this point, with enough LLTs, you can actually start to trade out against these T1 swarm bots before they really have an opportunity to do all too much damage. Yeah, 3 LLTs is definitely enough to soften up this composition quite nicely here, though. Yeah, I would say all said and done, a very efficient trade for the 3 LLTs that Alexi has thrown down right here. She's got to be pleased with the way that this static defense has bought time, and more importantly, shut down that push on that, yeah, mid left-hand section of the map here. This base is looking like a mess, but it's a well-designed mess. A well-choreographed mess, I guess you could say here, as Alexi goes for more and more wind turbines, and at this point, with 20 wind speed, is actually overflowing energy. It's time to start considering even some E-converters. It's easy to underestimate the impact that a couple of E-converters can have, but remember, that's energy per second being converted into metal. So just even a single energy converter converting 70 energy per second into metal means suddenly you've got, oh, I don't know, half a metal extractor, 2 of them, and you've got more than a single metal extractor on this map. It can be a huge advantage, and it can also be a comeback potential, right? If you otherwise don't have a way to get out on the map and expand, but you do have a bunch of wind turbines pumping out energy, and your ally, or opponent rather, has forgotten to build a whole bunch of energy converters, it can be a way to come back to this. You can see both of these commanders overflowing a bunch of energy, so I guess for the time being, I would say it's a fair game. A vehicle transition underway right here for the red commander. We start up some beamer turrets here. A little bit of a defensive measure as we see these pawns sitting idly outside the base. Yeah, we're thinking about it. There we go. The pawns finally move forward. These have definitely had the potential to kill this base. We dropped 740 metal into that good old-fashioned T1 laboratory, and it meant 740 metal that wasn't pawns to defend against this attack. All of a sudden, we have 10 pawns in the backline, ravaging the base right here of the red commander, Victor 12, in a huge situation. Beautiful. Beautifully done right there. A tremendous run by. Takes out basically all of the energy economy right now. All the build power in the world isn't going to matter if you don't have resources to spend. And it looks like Victor is also taking losses on the metal extractors. Yeah, not quite greedy enough. GG is called. And Alexi puts a point on the board for game number 2. GG.
Battle ended. Battle started.
1 point apiece for each of these commanders, and you can definitely tell that they're hungry, right? Both of them vying for that dinner. as hard as they can right now. We're going to see Armada again from Victor spawning on the southern side here, and of course we are going to also see Armada once more for Alexi. Definitely feeling comfortable in that Armada space, and Victor not willing to change it up after taking a loss right there in the last match. Interesting that we are going to see stick around on Armada. I know commanders that would certainly have switched back to their comfort Cortex after taking that loss, especially after winning the first game as well. But Victor going to stick it out and going to play some Armada for us as well. All right, in the mirror matchup, I'm very curious to see what the adaptive playstyle is going to look like. I did happen to notice while I was changing replays that these matches have sort of gone up in time. As these commanders learn how to play against each other, right? They're sort of, so a little bit of background context that I was given. Apparently these two skirm against each other quite often. They skirmish regularly, and so it does mean that they have, at the very least, a little bit of background knowledge, right? They're comfortable playing against each other, but that always means that we see some interesting stuff, right? It means we see kind of like the, I know what you're going to do, so I'm going to outsmart you, but then the other commander says, I know you know what I'm going to do, so I'm going to outsmart your outsmarting. You end up in this vicious rabbit hole, and no one can really tell where it ever ends. But it does mean that as these games go on, both of these commanders are getting a little bit more comfortable. They're also getting warmed up, right? And both getting ready for that third match here, which could be the, well, match point game. Well, it is definitively the match point game, I guess. There's no opportunity. I suppose we could see a draw, which is 0 points to either player. But other than that, I don't think that... I don't think we're going to see that outcome here. It's rare to see a draw in Beyond All Reason. I think the amount of times I've drawn a game have been like less than one hand's worth of fingers for sure. Ticks being used very defensively. No, okay, maybe a miscue. No, okay, we are going to use them defensively. All right. I really don't mind it. These early metal extractors are the most important. Getting these up and running before anything else, super important to make sure that you do, because obviously that early game economy scales into the late game, right? So it's all exponential. So the earlier and the more frequently you can get those metal extractors up and running, the better off you're going to be in the long run here. The early radar tower is quite nice as well. Allows you to sniff out these attacks a lot sooner and get units into position. And that really is the ultimate difficulty. With how fast ticks are, you don't have very much time to react. You need the extra leeway that those T1 radar towers do give you. I would have preferred to see it up on this high ground, but obviously that would mean moving the commander away, and the commander is your ultimate source of build power in the early game, so... yeah, I don't really mind this position here at all for Victor. I mean, it is fine. It covers basically, if we take a higher perspective right here, you can see it covers basically this corner. So as long as you're paying attention, you don't really need to worry about this backline, as long as you hold this line and you hold this line, right? More or less. At least in theory. But theory will, as they say, only take you so far. Alexi doubling down on the wind, buying the dip here, as they say. Going to be building another constructor right now. Going for a mixture of 689 pawns to 7 ticks to 8 constructors. Apparently, the magic ratio right there. Looks like defense was held over on this right-hand side. We had a pesky tick lingering around, but it was eventually cleaned up right here by the forces in blue. And ultimately speaking, a slightly less aggressive game from these two. Interesting to see that both of these commanders have sort of chilled out slightly. Very interesting indeed, because, I mean, obviously, you know, you put your units on the field, and if you get value with them, then it could be a game-winning advantage. If you lose all of them in a defensive trade, though, best-case scenario, they're going to be reclaimed and sent back to the enemy. Worst-case scenario, they get resurrected and sent back in your own face. Dual-pronged expansion right here. We do have a pawn already in position to intercept these ticks running forward, though. Lovely stuff right there from Alexi, yeah. She's being very, very defensive right now with the pawns, keeping them in position to try and guard these. Ooh, we do have a naked constructor over here on the right-hand side, though. LLT isn't up and running yet. Until those LLTs are up, you really need an escort on each one of your constructors. Yeah, these ticks are going to get huge value. Self-D. No self-D on the metal extractors here. It's a very useful trick to know. The metal extractors are actually made intentionally useful or intentionally easy to self-destruct. They only take a second to pop. And with a well-timed self-destruct, you can save yourself from a lot of damage. Like an early self-D on this metal extractor might have saved these two, as well as the radar tower, of course. Ticks will, of course, escape with their lives, very relatively unharmed. They don't have much HP to lose anyway, so very efficient trades right there. Little bit of a counterattack right now as 4 pawns make their way across the map, but ultimately, I think this will be defended quite nicely. Loads of defensive pawns right here from Victor 12, going for a much more defensive stance, which is kind of what we've seen throughout this entire series so far. Now I'm curious if we're going to see a vehicle transition once more. We attempted it in the last game, but it was excellent timing on behalf of Alexi. She managed to poke the base right when the T1 laboratory was just about finished up, which is, of course, when you're going to have spent the most of the metal. Nice little micro right here. Weaving around the around the constructor right there so that this these ticks get their maximum damage because of the flanking bonus. A little bit of run by. Oh, actually still finds some value. Hey, look at that. Manages to still kill a wind turbine, and the pawn will get away with it too. Ticks running off into the corner, trying to escape with their lives. Keeping these alive is wonderful, of course, because it means that you, yeah, you can use them into the late game, right? You can pull those ticks back towards the base, start doing a little bit more harassment, and always eating up the APM of the opposing player right here. We do have resbots out and about. 2 resbots actually up and running is quite nice, and they're going to start resurrecting some of the corpses lying around over here, but I really wouldn't mind seeing a over-investment in energy if that's the kind of playstyle we're going to go for. Basically what you do is right around 20 metal or so, when you get to that point, you just start building units. You just start spamming as many units as possible. You just start dumping all your metal into units, and you use the excess metal that you're going to get to build wind turbines or other energy production, and you use that to resurrect your units and the enemy units that you kill. You end up with this undead army on the front line that can be nearly impossible to stop, and if you time it correctly, especially while your opponent is going for a transition, you can end up with a huge army on their front door before any of those heavy-hitting tanks can really roll their way out of the laboratory. Obviously, only viable whenever you're playing as a bot lab commander, so it is sort of limited by the tech that you choose to go into, but for both of these commanders here, a viable strategy nonetheless. A less aggressive expansion here, though, I will note. We have the constructor in the backline, but that hasn't been replaced yet, so Victor 12 is going for, yeah, definitely a much more laid-back kind of a play style right now. A little bit of an engagement right here. Those pawns accidentally running right on past the blue pawns that are trying to get aggressive on this side of the map. This is a wonderful catch right here, though. Yeah, those pawns will be toast. Still, though, 2 of these heroes will make it into the back. A little bit of damage here. Single radar tower and a metal extractor goes down. We do have the LLT up and running, though, so it's not going to be too much longer before that comes up and running, and now we have the resbots picking up whatever they can, trying to resurrect, for instance, metal extractors, pawns, constructors if they can find them, all sorts of good stuff. Little bit of an APM stall, though. Victor saving himself by sending units across the field, therefore stalling out the APM here for Alexi. And now these pawns are going to move forward for her, but yeah, get intercepted. Nice micro right there. Yeah, Alexi stalls on the pawns, but then saves the day by using the APM to save them here, which is actually great. Now we're going to be reverting back to defense. It's kind of the natural pace of this. In fact, why don't we switch to the camera here? What a funky camera angle we're playing with right now, but we have, yeah, we have the corner-to-corner map rather than playing, you know, on a straight lines sort of angle. Alexi playing this game like it's a top-down MOBA or something like that. Controlling these units all over the place, making sure to try and keep them in position. Little bit of a run by on that southern side. Northern side, getting all turned around with these camera angles. There we go. Yeah, pawns moving in here. Another, again, a good opportunity for a self-D right there. It's well worth doing. It does tons of damage to any unit caught in the blast, so, I mean, really, it is a viable strategy. Pawn here makes it up the hillside. You know what? Makes it into the back line. At least gets a wind turbine for the troubles. Pawn reclaiming. Okay. Eventually cleaned up here. I like the aggression from the red commander, but the aggressive expansions from blue means that we're going to see a massive energy, well, massive metal difference, and obviously that turns into an energy difference. Alexi stepping forward right here. Surrounded by the pawns, we have to be a little bit careful. I mean, they are just pawns, but also pawns can be quite dangerous in context. Sheesh. Down to just 44% HP. I'd be a little worried if I was the blue commander here. Setting up a radar tower. If we switch to the player vision, you can see those radar towers are crucial in making sure that you have control out on the map. Another catch on the right-hand side. I feel like these two commanders have definitely gotten into tune with each other. Definitely starts to feel like both of these commanders are well aware of the playstyle of the other and are now starting to predict the moves rather than play reactionary. Very cool to see. Still a devastating E-stall on both sides here. One of those things that we've seen in the pro-level play here a lot has been E-storages. Loads and loads of E-storages. Looks like Alexi has forgotten about the E-store here. In favor of building more and more construction towers and some solar panels and all sorts of other stuff. No energy storage means it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Yeah, there's the E-store coming up right now for Victor 12, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Commander having a moment. Going to be a little bit more difficult to deal in those low energy, low wind speed moments. Still not the end of the world, but definitely a helpful cause. Doesn't really matter, though. At the end of the day, if you have the production and you can spend the production, then it doesn't really matter if you can store it. And Alexi has done a wonderful job here of just pushing forward with a bunch of these units and using the extra energy to resurrect anything that does fall. I like the playstyle. No vehicle transition this time around. Instead, are we going to see a air lab? There was an air lab at the very end of that last game, just before GG was called. We did have an air lab transition for the gunships. I wonder if we're going to see something like that again. LLT is coming up here. At this point in the game, you kind of have to start investing in 2 LLTs per base, per mechs. 2 LLTs can be really, really effective against a bunch of pawns. 1 LLT just not going to cut it anymore. I really can't help but feel like we're over-investing in these build turrets here. 2 or 3 advanced solar panels instead of the wind turbines right now stimulates, it basically triples that, or doubles that economy right here for Victor. And it takes a lot less build power to do that, right? Or rather, it takes a lot less build range, because you can only fill so much of this range with wind turbines before you've built yourself into a prison, like the Red Commander has. Whereas, yeah, if you go for those advanced solars, it takes a lot less space on the map. If you're feeling space constricted, it might be the better option here. But my goodness, Alexi just has a gigantic economy at this point. Going for more and more of these build towers and continuing to dump the metal onto the field. I love it. We do have the E-Store up and running eventually as well, which obviously unlocks the opportunity to convert a lot more energy into metal. One of those mistakes that I feel like I see new commanders make a lot of the time is not building an E-Store and then trying to convert all your energy into metal. It doesn't work. You have to have enough storage to convert all the energy into metal in the first place. If you don't, then you're never going to be able to actually do it. So you need those E-Stores in order to actually properly convert energy into metal. Oh, look at that. Wow, fancy. Eating up the T1 solar panels in favor of the wind turbines and more E-storage. Alright, I see you, Alexi. I like the plays here. Anywhere and everywhere I can get a chance to see T1 solar panels being devastated, I'm going to take the opportunity. If you know me, you know I'm a fan of those T1 solar panels going down right here. Pawns running in a beautiful engagement, though. It's going to be a wonderful surround right now for the blue forces. Oh, you couldn't ask for a better fight than that. Man, what a beautiful trade right there, leaving hundreds of corpses, well, not hundreds, leaving dozens of corpses out on the field right here, ripe for the reclamation or the resurrection. Alexi now with an army advantage of 71%, a defense advantage of 100%, an eco advantage of 41% and 173%. This is a runaway game right here for the Blue Commander. This is everything that dreams are made out of. It's time for a Hail Mary from the Red Commander, who just hasn't been producing enough resources for the entirety of this game. And now, with more and more repeated run-bys constantly tearing apart the metal extractors, killing the constructors, denying the expansions, Alexi has over 50% of the map, or just about 50% of the map, expanding with the commander and the constructors, using the resbots to resurrect. This is a beautiful way of playing the game right now for the Blue Commander. It's textbook Cortex, or, well, sorry, textbook Beyond All Reason to a T. Cortex and Armada commanders can both do this, but it feels good to see Armada do it for a change. We've had our share of, yeah, watching the grunts terrorize the 1v1 playstyle for the longest time. Now the pawns are taking center stage here, and we do have an air transition for the Blue Commander. Alexi looking to win this game with a single definitive push right here, looking for that commander and going to try and snipe it. You need to build up a sizable force of those gunships, though. Usually about 10 to 15 gunships is enough to snipe a commander before really you can react or do all too much in general. It might not even be necessary, though. So many bonds running into the base right now, my goodness. And we're going to back off because of that LLT. Maybe the right choice here. Getting very, very dicey, though. Now, it's important to remember that while the aircraft are coming out, some of that build power isn't going back to the pawns. Not a lot of it, actually. Most of the... There's still 2 or 3 constructors pumping out pawns rapidly right now for the Blue Commander. But that army isn't going to be growing at the same rate that the Red Army is, who, by the way, Victor 12 has gone into a second laboratory. So we're just going to be spamming out a whole bunch of T1, trying to win this game with a whole bunch more pawns. But Banshees are already headed on over in this direction. We need a little bit of scouting info, because I don't think we can actually see the entire base right now. Whoa, GG is called. The Banshees are spotted, and it looks like Victor will throw in the towel. Okay. GG after all. And it looks like Alexi puts another point on the board. Putting 2 points on the board here for the Blue Commander, up against just 1 for the Red. And that, of course, means we are at match point. Game number 4. Game number 4, already underway as I've skipped past a couple of minutes here as we get into the middle of this match. We have grunts out on the field, but no major damage has been done on either side, but we do have a little bit of a run-by happening on the other side of the map, and most importantly, both of these commanders, out of the blue, have decided to go ahead and switch into Cortex. Now that's an interesting change. I wonder what on earth prompted that. I didn't see anything in the chat aside from the GLHF, so as far as I'm aware, both of these commanders spontaneously decided at the exact same moment that they were going to go ahead and play a little bit of Cortex gaming, which is kind of interesting. It does mean we're going to have grunts versus grunts on the field, which is a matchup as old as time, really. Yeah, grunts have long held that standing as the 1v1 champions unit. And for good reason. They're cheap, fairly efficient, very easy to micro. They really are a staple. Now, interestingly enough, we're not seeing vehicles here. I'm a little bit surprised. Incisors have been a very popular option for Cortex commanders recently. I think it's been widely tested, and incisors seem to be one of the most efficient counters against the Armada pawn spam meta. Is basically just to go for those incisors, make sure not to lose them, try and repair them as much as possible with the commander or constructors or whatever it takes. Resbots, if you are later into the game and you have resbots and you can afford those. But here we have grunts out on the field, and I'm a little bit curious, right? We have 2 points on the board for Alexi, so she's definitely got to be feeling good going into this game. But I wonder if going Cortex was meant to be like a, haha, I gotcha kind of a moment here for Victor, but instead she saw grunts on the other side of the map and thought, oh, well, okay, you've done the same thing to me, and now we're essentially on even footing here. LLT to hold the line right now. A couple of these grunts will be saved. They are trying to avoid that LLT as much as possible in order to get into the backline and try and kill these constructors. I almost wonder if going for the turret first before the mechs, or maybe like one mechs into a turret, is not the worst option. After we've watched over and over and over again these metal extractors go down due to the run-bys, and especially the constructors going down due to the run-bys. Can't help but wonder if that's the move. Nice micro right here, though. Alexi moving that constructor backwards right now, going to micro it away from danger and use the grunts to go ahead and clean up the aggression. Meanwhile, a beautiful fight over here. Oh, this is a perfect trade. We've got the concave going up against the straight line. That's going to be as efficient of a trade as you could possibly hope for right there for the blue commander. The only downside being, of course, that a bunch of these units are on the red side of the map. So getting that reclaim, getting those corpses resurrected and out of there is going to be a little bit tricky. But fear not, we do have the resbot. Only 175 metal, so reclaiming it isn't the end of the world. Still very useful, though. 175 metal. That's what? 4, 8, 12, 16. That's like 4 grunts worth of metal. That was like 10 grunts that went down for 4 grunts worth of metal. So you can see kind of the efficiency when you start to lose those units and try and resurrect them. Grave Robber running for its life right now as the grunts move forward. They didn't really manage to hold on against the reinforced wave there from the red commander. And so I would say that this, this aggression has been well held off at this point. The blue commander, Alexi, going to be going into a little bit more build power here, trying to get enough build power to actually spend all of that juicy, juicy metal out on the field. We have quite a lot of metal storage in the bank right now. Actually, 1950. Do we have an imp store? I don't see it if that's the case. I guess it's just the metal storage from these metal extractors. Yeah, they do 50 apiece. It adds up over time, I suppose, here, but there we go. I mean, you can see some solar panels are going to be the option of choice to get that metal down. Put it, well, somewhere useful. Even going to go for an E-storage here. Not bad. Victor 12 going for more and more build power here as well. Trying to scale up the eco, and again, very mirrored builds, as you can see. We're going into, after this, just immediately into the good old-fashioned E-store here. The Cortex Hardened Energy Storage, 6,000 energy. Stored inside of that bad boy. Very nicely done. Very aggressive expansions here as well, I will say. Victor 12 being super, super greedy with the mexes out of the map. But hey, if you can risk it for the biscuit, hold on to those mexes, you're going to be in a pretty good time. I love this LLT wall down here as well. I think that's a lovely choice. Blocking off, choosing one of these angles to block off. Either the southern side really makes sense here for the red commander. You could also try and block off this angle right across the midsection. Just 3-4 LLTs right here in a big concave to try and help out. Either one of those options makes a lot of sense. It alleviates the angles that you can be attacked from, and of course it also means that you have a essentially uncontested angle to attack from as well, because units likely aren't going to stay parked over there. Oh, another beautiful catch headed on its way, though. Oh, man. Alexi in position with the units. Nicely done for those blue grunts on the right-hand side, managing to get in position to completely deny this ball of aggression right here from the red comm. I sure hope we see a little bit more micro right here. Yeah, there we go. Going for the good old-fashioned full surround, and in a mere matter of moments, all of those units go down right here. That is a whopping... Oh, wait for it. There's no way it's actually 25. I think it just hasn't updated yet. Is that actually 25 metal all said and done? No, there's no way. It's probably about 50 metal. Not much, in all honesty. Grunts really are mostly made of tinfoil. They've got the tiniest little robotic skeleton, 2 AA batteries, and a lot of tinfoil. They take basically any damage at all, and they turn into, you know, kind of silvery mist. Constructors all over the place, though. I almost wonder if playing this almost like an AI would be the move here. You just, instead of going for a bunch of units, you just slowly expand with a bunch of constructors. Vehicle transition underway here for the red commander, and air transition underway for the blue. And we've actually already got vehicles out and running for blue, so it is going to be a vehicle versus vehicle fight, but with resbots to support the red army versus shurikens, no doubt, to support the blue. Now, if we have even the tiniest amount of anti-air mixed into this composition, which I highly suspect that we might, those missile trucks have been very popular recently, these shuriken are not going to be able to find all too much value. But, then again, you never really know where you're going to find the value with the shuriken. Run by on the northern side, by the way. Again, LLTs were just not prioritized, and it means that these grunts had free reign to push forward. This will probably be the first vehicle that was spotted right there. The incisor will be a danger that Alexi is going to have to deal with, and I think shuriken are, well, they're an option, certainly. Yeah, this is a great use right here. Like, for instance, the red army looking to move forward right now, but we have those shuriken numbers slowly but surely climbing, and as they get up to enough mass, you can suddenly turn this fight that is relatively even into one that is just a downright stomp. If you get a couple of those resbots out, it's bonus points, but the red commander is the only one with resbots out at the moment. Oh, where are we going? There we go. Resbots turning around to continue firing right here, and just like that, those incisors are all disabled. And what a phenomenal fight right there for the blue commander. If there ever was a moment to go into resbots, I think it would be right about now, while you have all this metal that you can reclaim to build the bot lab back up and running. Or, of course, you could pivot out of air or out of vehicles, you know, pivot out of one of these and into vehicle or into bot lab here. I think that would be the worthwhile choice. Are we going to go for an air lab here for the Redcom? No, we're just going for some anti-air trucks. Okay. Not the end of the world, but we do see these front lines falling pretty quickly. LOT is pretty good, though. Oh, missile truck's going to be found here by the grunt and incisor swarm. Way investing in those missile trucks here. At this point, we have a grand total of 10 missile trucks rolling around on the field right now. Yeah. It's a good spot of anti-air, of course, but they also do a decent amount of damage. I can't help but wonder if maybe this is a situation where you start going for something like a base trade. You just send those missile trucks across, you start slow pushing into the LLTs right here, and it forces a bunch of that army back. Even if it's just 2 or 3 of those, and you just start forcing that army back, hey, look at this. Those resbots going to find their advantage here, though, as they do start resurrecting a bunch of this stuff on the front. That's the LLTs, the incisors, basically building its own portable army right here, only at the cost of time. 3 LLTs in the midsection, or on the middle of this southern section here. Bunch of incisor pushing forward. Those missile trucks aren't too late to the party. They will eventually get into position, also shooting down the fighters, which is nice, of course. And they don't do an inconsiderable amount of damage to the blue units either. They're going to put in some work. There you go. You can see firing away and being very pesky to deal with. Essentially ensuring that no trade here is ever going to be 100% efficient because, well, ultimately those resbots are already doing that, but the fact that now those missile trucks can always fire away and get damage even as you're retreating, you're going to be in a rough way. This is nice, though. A single hero grunt has somehow made it into the backline, just finding the golden path right here and managing to squeak through the defenses. And just like that, it kills 2 metal extractors. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes ahead and kills another one. Nice surround right here. Yeah, the incisors. Ooh, well, okay. They got on top of all these, but then they also ran away from all of them, so that's a little unfortunate. All said and done, though, I think this will be cleaned up. Yeah, build power is enough to shuttle that down. We do have more incisors moving to the front. This is a dangerous-looking ball of units, though. Medium tanks are rolling out right now. Okay. Yeah. I will give credit to Alexi for spending the metal. Putting the metal actually out on the field rather than, yeah, keeping it in the bank here, and that's what those medium tanks are for. Missile trucks are going to get killed as they can't retreat as fast as the incisors and the grunts. You essentially have to stand your ground to allow the allow the medium tanks to allow the missile trucks to escape from the medium tanks, or you have to, well, full retreat like we saw right there, and suddenly you lose it all. Incisors doing a good thing here though. Well, kind of. There's not really units to follow this up, but at the very least, I mean, the front line's scared. Yeah, definitely very scared here, sure. More missile trucks coming up to replace the ones that we lost. But they're not necessarily lost. Resbots are going to reclaim all this. And you know what? That's 2,500 metal at this point. Oh, we're way overflowing. Way overflowing metal. Oh, no. Okay, we swapped to Resurrecting. Wonderful. Well, I was a little worried about that right there. If we threw 2,000 metal down the drain, that would have been a nightmare. Let's go for T2. Oh, we could have gone for T2. Well, maybe we need the units right here. Yeah, you know what? Resbots, they try and get as much of this open. Oh, we need to spread these units out, though. The fact that they're in a ball like that really makes this an inefficient fight for those units because those medium tanks can get a little bit of AoE damage splash against them. Okay, we are in something like a base trade here. Little bit of a base trade situation. Incisors now running past the defenses and into the backline. If they can snipe that build power, I would say that that would be a game-winning play right now. Look at that beautiful E-converter. It's glorious. The hero E-converter. Oh, no. Come on. No. No, don't tell me. The E-converter in the middle of all of the build towers here. Come on, somebody shoot at it. Oh, please. I'm begging and screaming for that E-converter to pop. It doesn't look like we're going to get it today. Now we have the medium tanks out and brawling over here on this right-hand side. I think most of the Resbots went down, unfortunately, for the Red Commander. We can build a bunch more, of course, and it looks like we indeed will. It's an easy way of funding the defensive forces here. You just eat up the scraps of this brawl. Rebuilding these mechs is going to be important, though. I really can't believe that. Look at this. Look at this juicy explosion. If this thing pops, it's all of them. It's every single metal extractor goes down, or build turret, rather, goes down right here. Oh, man. It's funny because I've totally done the same thing, and it's one of those things where it looks really interesting, it looks really good when you're just, you know, kind of looking at it while you're rapidly building. But then you start to really think about it, and you're like, whoa, wait a second, no, that's actually a terrible idea. This is never going to work properly. I would say Alexi definitely got lucky that those units didn't target that, because that would have been devastating, right? That's all the build power right here for the Blue Commander. I mean, there's still a couple. I think these two probably would have survived, but there's still a couple of turrets up and running. It still would have been a huge hit, though. In this case, however, it is going to be the Resbots that make the difference, I think. As, yeah, a whole bunch of these units on the front line get back up. It won't matter how many tanks you throw at the enemy if all of them turn around eventually and start, well, headed back towards your own base. You can see these E-converters are very helpful as well. An extra 6 metal per second, I mean, that's 4... That's 3 extra metal extractors, pardon me. Well, it's close to 4, actually, with a little bit of residuals, yeah. Victor 12, by the way, very low on HP. Almost missed a commander snipe, but apparently we don't have to worry about it. Medium tanks pushing on the southern side, okay. We've got a exploiter, the armed metal extractor here, fires a little light laser beam out of its twin schnozzle, but at the end of the day, medium tanks are just too sturdy for LLTs. You really have to invest in something a bit higher power, or just put units over there. One thing that can make your static defenses quite a bit better, however, are those riot tanks, and I would definitely encourage Cortex commanders to think of them almost as a mobile static defense, right? You can put them in position, and you can use them as if they were mobile defenses. Resurrected units on the prowl. Yeah, I'm actually surprised to see the lack of pounders here. Pounders mixed into this ball would impulse a whole bunch of these tanks and make it really, really effective for the defending forces to fire away really easily, not missing very many shots. Oh, we have some thugs pushing forward right here as well. We have a constructor running away with its life. Lasher anti-air missile truck firing away here as well. Yeah, trying to paralyze the anti-air as much as possible. But it's just mass medium tank. And you know what? The brutes are so effective. Look at this. Completely clearing away all these LLTs up on this northern side right now. Shuriken are forced back in that direction, but it frees up the forces on the right-hand side. And I gotta say, I think Victor 12 is handling this very gracefully. Making big plays in every direction right now. The Shuriken eventually clean up the tanks on that northern side. But yeah, you can sense that Alexi is very hesitant to put these units on that side of the field. So many of these units are wearing a little halo because they've been resurrected, so now you can tell it's definitely an awkward situation, right? If you keep throwing medium tanks at the issue, does the issue just get bigger and bigger? We've rotated completely into thugs, which is interesting. They're definitely an option for ending this game, but it's surprising to go backwards. We've almost gone down a tier from medium tanks to thugs. They're a little bit cheaper. You're clocking it at 140 metal versus the medium tanks 235. But even still, I'm not entirely convinced that it's what we need here. Meanwhile, Shuriken coming in to help out once more. These medium tanks are dead as a doorknob. No chance that these are making out of this battle alive. They are way too injured. Shuriken way too good. We need fighters. Yeah. The lack of fighters is really killing me here. If there were 3 fighters in the air to kill these Shuriken, then I think this would be a lovely time. Obviously, Alexi has transitioned out at this point as we get this T2 laboratory up and running. It means that all of a sudden, yeah, fighters have huge potential here. A couple of defensive fighters for the Blue Commander. That's really all she's got after those fighters go away. These are pretty easy to clean up. The Shuriken, I mean. AA truck is slowly but surely doing it. This T2 is going to be brutal, though. We actually have a constructor coming up here. Okay. Hey, eating the solar panels. Nicely done. The Blue Commander remembering the most delicious snack under the sun. It's the T1 solar panel. Loads of medium tanks coming up here. So what are we going to go for? One popular strategy recently has been to go for Mauser / Quaker balls. Just an early one in order to get a bit of an advantage against those T1 units. Usually more than one, actually. I would say it's probably usually about 5. 4 to 5 seems to be sort of the sweet spot where you do enough damage to be effective, while not necessarily costing so much that you shoot yourself in the foot later on when you're ready to scale. A big old ball of units pushing forward on this side, though. I'd like to see some of those resbots split off over here. This is the kind of wreck field where if you reclaim this, you go into T2 immediately. We are talking about a grand 6,500 metal, yeah. Well and away enough to fund T2 and some more. Oh, a bunch of resbots go down right here. Yikes. That sucks for the Blue Commander, losing all those resbots. Fiends are out on the map right now as well, and they're taking some damage. Uh-oh. Alexi. Alexi, she's busy microing this other army. Controlling the thugs over here, not paying attention to the Fiends. Oh, no. Oh, those Fiends were the game-winning ticket. They were at the very least going to stop this push, but they got surrounded. And they just took too many efficient hits right there. Oh, no. AA is still in the mix as well, so these Shuriken are going down slowly but surely. And it's expensive to lose them. I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot, right? They're not very metal expensive at 58 metal apiece, but it does add up pretty quick. And suddenly, you know, 2 of them go down and you're down 100 metal. It adds up really, really fast. Where are the resbots? Oh, there they are. Yeah, resurrecting this entire composition, forcing the thugs into the resurrected reinforcements. It's kind of funny. We do have some thugs making their way towards the base right here. Always an awkward moment when thugs are in your backline. We still have this golden opportunity right here. Is it enough armor to break through, or do the Fiends have enough firepower to clean this up? Well, Fiends have ridiculous firepower, so I think they'll be able to do it. I think it's time we switch from resurrecting to reclaiming. These are cleaned up eventually as well. Killing some wind turbines and a metal extractor, not the end of the world. At this point in the game, we've got plenty of wind turbines, plenty of mexes all over the place. You can see the Red Commander eager to start reclaiming from this wreckage, as risky as that is. I cannot believe we're resisting T2 for this long. We already have the E-Storage as well. You could also go for a second E-Storage, start building those solar panels. Just spam advanced solar panels like crazy. There we go. T2 Lab finally starts up. So late, in my opinion. We need to switch to reclaiming mode here. Maybe these 3 reclaiming out of the middle. Kind of what you want to do, this is my recommendation, is if you're ever reclaiming right here, what you kind of want to do is basically along the length of this, you want to spread out your resbots so they all reclaim independently. You'll eat up wreckages a whole lot quicker that way, rather than if you go ahead and use, for instance, you know, you put them all in a big ball. They'll individually reclaim each wreckage extremely quickly, but you don't necessarily need to do that. That sort of wastes a lot of the build power that they have. Oftentimes, it's a lot better to just go ahead and go for yeah, good old-fashioned spreading. And you can quote me on that one. Advanced construction vehicle coming up here out of the T2 lab. Gonna go into some of those T2 mexes, but we've already got it right now for the Blue Commander. I mean, this is looking good. Even though these T2, these Fiends are not trading out particularly efficiently, I'd love to see some self-D micro, honestly, on those. I feel like it's a little bit of a waste not to use Fiends for self-D micro against clumped up units like this. It always feels a little bit strange, but we do have some Sumos coming up eventually, and ultimately I think this is the right direction for the blue comp, and we do also have, again, these T2 mexes are huge. 7.3 metal per second is, it's like you're claiming 3 other metal extractors on the map. I mean, that is just insane. Medium mine has been set up right here. Was that a Twitcher that was out on the field somewhere? It must have been. Or otherwise there was a mine layer that has long since been forgotten about. Yeah, so frustrating to see these Fiends parked idly here and not self-D'ing into the middle of this composition. I guarantee you, if all the Fiends that we had seen so far, or maybe even, you know, even just half of the Fiends that we've seen so far, had self-D'd in the middle of this, none of these units would be here right now. They would almost all have been destroyed. Are we going to see Banishers, or are we going to see Tiger tanks? Looks like it's going to be Tigers here for the red comp. Going into some of those heavy tanks right here, 665 metal a pop, but for an extremely, extremely HP spongy unit. Doesn't do very much damage, but has enough HP to just be ridiculously difficult to deal with. We have Sumos waddling out of the lab alongside the Fiends. Self-D. No self-D here. I'm a little bit bummed about it. Yeah, I can't hide it. I've got to be genuine. I think the self-D would be very important right now. Sumo's holding the line on the southern side, but again, no reclaim. 1 or 2 air cons to eat up that reclaim might have been nice, although we do still have a bunch of these missile trucks, so probably would have been super useful or super available. Oh, I thought that was going to be the moment. Can you tell that I've been keeping my camera where I think the self-D micro will happen? I just don't think it will. Alexi now on the bottom side and completely exposed. Commander is jumped upon, and, well, there's enough energy production to fire those D-guns, but there's enough units here that I don't know if it matters. And very well may. The wind turbines are falling, though. No stabilized energy production like solar panels or anything like that, so as these wind turbines fall, it really is the core wind, or the core energy producer here for the blue commander. Oh, and those units get into the back line. Yeah. This is a bad situation if ever there was one. We do have wind turbines back here as well, helping with the energy production. Is it going to be the moment? The moment we've all been waiting for? No! Target the explosive building. We're going to target everything except the explosive building. My goodness. Wow. The one thing that stands after all of this is the single most explosive building surrounding all the fragile, highly chain reactable build turrets. I'm at a loss. I'm really at a loss, but GG is called nonetheless. Obviously, way too much damage here for the blue commander. It means we'll go into the game finals, round number 5 of this best of 5 between these two commanders. Jumping on over into game 5 now. 2 points on the board for each of these commanders. This is the final match to determine who is going to be buying dinner. The winner of this match will get to recline in comfort and enjoy dinner at the other's expense. And you can tell that both of these commanders have really put their hearts out on the field here. So once more, it's going to be Cortex here for Alexi spawning on the. I keep saying Lexi. I do apologize. Alexi, 5,000 spawning on the northern side as a blue Cortex commander. On the southern side, also as a core comm here, going to be once more Victor 12. Now, what I find interesting about this is the changes here between these two commanders. So it started with a match that was core versus Armada. Core for Victor and Arm for Alexi here. Afterwards, it turned into Arm versus Arm for a while, and now we're back to Core versus Core. So both of these commanders trying different strategies, trying to hard counter each other. And indeed, for the 5th match today, we have once again a little bit of variety. Alexi going to be going into those good old-fashioned core bots, whereas the red commander here is going to be going into... Oh, no, we had a change of plans, actually. So both going into core bots once again. So we're going to see those good old-fashioned grunt battles, loads of resbot spam. And I wonder if we're going to go for some thugs a little bit earlier on. I could definitely see those the thug push being very dangerous earlier into this match. You only need about like 15 metal per second to start producing thugs at a pretty good rate. Once you get up to like 20 metal per second, you can start to pump out so many of those thugs that if you have enough resbots behind them, like, I don't know, maybe 1 resbot to every 3 thugs, something like that, you can start to resurrect them so quickly that you reinforce your front line while you reinforce from the back line. And there's really not an efficient way of trading against it. You just never will be able to trade with just production alone. It's a very critical snowball, and it can be hit in the early game. It's a very important timing for Cortex commanders to know about and to try and judge and guess. If you can manage to hit that timing attack and you can land those Cortex thugs in the enemy base, oftentimes it can be a game-winning play. Worth noting, of course, that Armada commanders can do that too with maces. It's just that the maces aren't quite as powerful and you need a few more of them. It means it's a little harder to snowball them that way. But, of course, they're lower HP, means they're a little bit more repairable, right? You can repair them up to full health a little bit quicker. So, you know, trade-offs all around. Grunt's going to be defending every single constructor here. So you can see 2 Grunts as an escort for each of these constructors. Alexi is not playing around. Not going to be messing around here as we do go into the radar tower first and then into the mexes and the LLT. Not willing to commit to the laser tower before the mexes. They're just too good, those metal extractors. But at the very least going to, try and get the radar tower up so that we can see where the aggression is coming from. And there is aggression on its way. A single red Cortex drone has headed on over in this direction. We have the Grunt versus Grunt showdown of our dreams as these two laser it out here, but it will be the aggressor that actually takes it by 1% HP. We're going to do a little bit of tanking. Yeah, we are. We're going to tank with the constructor here and then use the Grunt defensively. Okay, well, a little bit of damage taken right there, but all said and done, the constructor stays alive and the Grunts do not. So I'm going to go ahead and call that a win right here for the blue commander on this northern side. Still, though, another Grunt looking around for opportunities. It was pushed away by the defenses here, the defenders, I should say, for the blue commander, but it will now be headed into the backline. If it can avoid detection, which it looks like it certainly will not. No way. Thank you. I was very worried we were about to see that Grunt going to live with 1% HP, kill the entire backline, and win this game. Luckily, Alexi will not let that slide and will indeed get back to ecoing here, expanding with the constructors, building those metal extractors, stalling hard on metal right now, but obviously this is the solution. Nothing more efficient than metal extractors to produce metal in the game. And as that mech's economy begins to scale upwards and upwards and upwards, this starts to look better and better. A more conservative expansion right here for Victor 12, expanding to this corner expansion on the southern side here, southwestern side, whereas Lexi has gone for the wing expansions here, going out east and north in order to claim those mexes and hopefully lock down this area. It's one of those areas where I think a exploiter would be really good, is right here. In fact, let's just take a little gander, shall we? Yeah, you can see the effective radius of an exploiter here almost covers this entire edge. If you built an exploiter here and then an LLT over on this side, I think you'd be pretty much covered to build as freely as you want in this backline here. I've noticed that both of these commanders have sort of adopted this strategy of building a bunch of wind turbines in the back here, just going for maximum wind turbine in what is supposed to be, at the very least, the safest part of the map. Now, interestingly, both of these commanders know that, right? Both are trying to counterplay the others, so both know that getting a unit into that backline, into that corner, is going to be the most powerful way to play this. So we see the continued probing on either end right here. Alexi sending out a whole bunch of these grunts, trying to sneak around the sides right here, trying to kill any constructors that are moving just a little too greedily outwards on the map. Looks like the grunts are detected over on the southern side as well. These ones are waiting for their brethren, but it does give enough time right now for the red commander to react. Either these spawns have to continue going south, and that will give enough time for production to send units to reinforce, or they can just, well, go ahead and march forward. The good old-fashioned Viking classic brute force attack right through the midsection. Do we have splitties going on right here? Wow, we have a little bit of micro splitties going on. Micro Jackson here. Victor 12 going to be separating up all these units and trying to maximize that surround bonus. Obviously, the ideal least micro opportunity is a concave, right? If you get a concave going into a straight line, that allows all your units to fire at the same time, gives you the best trade. However, there is one that's even better, and that's like a near diagonal split, right? So if you have it like this, then you have all your units firing from an even harsher angle, while the enemy can only, you know, barely fire out from their angle at all. Not the case here today. It was just a little bit of a micro mishap, but would be cool to see. And it's something that I imagine we will see as Beyond All Reason grows, as more and more Koreans move over from the StarCraft ladder. As I believe it was Winter Gaming who said this. I'll quote Winter Gaming on this one. There is no OP race in StarCraft, and to another extent, Beyond All Reason, other than Koreans. Koreans are the only OP race in Beyond All Reason and Beyond StarCraft 2. I thought that was hilarious. Let me know what you think down below in the comment section. Of course, feel free to check out the links down below as well. A humble opportunity to promote the Beyond All Reason Fight Nights, and, well, there's going to be a bunch of different events going on, but basically there's going to be a whole bunch of events in May, many, if not all of which will feature Legion. So in case you're interested in checking out the third faction in Beyond All Reason, seeing if indeed there is an unbalanced faction in Beyond All Reason, and, you know, forming your opinions about that, feel free to take a look at the Legion tournaments that are going to be going on basically every single weekend this month. Very excited about all of it. I would definitely urge anybody who's looking to donate, if you're thinking about donating to Beyond All Reason, it's an excellent opportunity to donate to the community. Just helping donate for those prize pools attracts some of the best so that we get to enjoy the very toppest tier of gameplay going on. Now look at this. We've gone for exploiters all the way down the midsection here. And you know what? Throughout this entire series, through all of these games, it feels like we've kind of seen a lot of metal linger. And I'd honestly rather have it in exploiters on the map, since we know that grunts are going to be around for a good long time. It's going to be a minute before either of these commanders transition into vehicles. That being said, I think both of them could afford it. Yeah, once you're at 20 metal per second, I would say you're pretty much ready to afford vehicles. At this point, 37 means you can kind of afford both. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the next move here, but I'm really surprised by the lack of advanced solar panels here. Usually Cortex commanders are very quick to jump on those advanced solar panels, just because they are relatively cheap compared to the Armada ones, and they, well, produce consistent energy, and that could be a really useful help later on in the game when inevitably the wind energy stalls and you don't have enough energy to produce anything, and you end up in a really tricky situation right there. But for now, it's grunts, and then some more grunts. Nice LT defense right through the midsection right here as well. Just walling this off and saying, no, I don't think we'll be aggressive over here. I think it'd be better if we just lock this area off. We'll send aggression through the very tippy top of the northern side, but in the midsection, I don't think it's really going to be where we're taking this position. Still, though, these constructors building the exploiters is so nice. One of the interesting things that affords you, of course, is also a retreat path. As you fall back with your, as you fall back with your units, you have the opportunity to retreat to those static defenses, and you end up in a pretty good spot here. Vehicle transition, by the way, for Victor. Will we see vehicles here as well for Alexi? Not this time. Loads of metal in the bank right now, and again, resisting the advanced solar panel. Let the advanced solar panel consume you. And eventually we will also get into vehicles once more. Not bad. Not bad at all, actually. I mean, the vehicle play makes a lot of sense. Once you have that much metal, you have to spend it somehow, and energy to metal wise, the vehicle units are quite a bit more metal dense, right? So roughly the same, not the exact same, but they're a little more expensive energy wise than the bots. However, much more metal expensive, I guess is the way of saying it. The metal cost ratio of the vehicles to bots is much higher than the energy cost ratio. Is that the right way of saying that? Anyways, you get what I mean. Grunts reorganizing on the southern side. They've got two fronts to worry about, but they also have two towers to hide behind. A little bit of a block. This twin guard sitting in front of the exploiter. Unfortunate. Constructor moving around and very gracefully building metal extractors, though. We've ended up in, once more, a situation where both of these teams could realistically go into T2. Nice little catch over here as well. Exploiter firing away here alongside the grunt. Taking out whatever they can. Man, those grunts, when they're damaged, they look really damaged. Like I said, they're, again, made of, like, tinfoil and you know, toilet paper and spit and super glue. Oh, wow. Giant push right here that was essentially just neglected. With all the static defenses around, I don't think Alexi was really expecting a big push right now. All of a sudden, those incisors have a clear path directly into the base, and my goodness, I think they've done it. Ladies and gentlemen, with all the grunts in the base right now, it's only a matter of time before the build power falls, and indeed, those turrets will start to pop. Solar panels have already been destroyed, and the wind turbines are collapsing as well. Luckily, there's a couple extra wind turbines over here to help with that economy, but man, that was a brutal run by right there. More follow-up incisors killing this as well. I need to see that build turret focus down right here. I don't think we're going to get it. Oh, we do. Okay. Build turret falls, and suddenly the build power is crumpled right here for the blue commander. Alexi knows that this is game point, though, so she can't really throw in the towel. Has to fight to the bitter end right now to try and stay alive. Solar panels all the way out to try and just stabilize that energy economy, dumping the metal into whatever and anything possible in order to try and stay alive. But there we go. E-storage is falling here as well, and as soon as that goes down, this game is in the dumps. Defensive forces managed to shoo this away for now. Both directions being attacked from, though. And now we have Resbots resurrecting a bunch of these units. Hey, nicely done. Incisors pushing around all over on, well, both sides here. We have a big old grunt battle that was, well, concluded on this right-hand side. Eventually, the run-by is dealt with. Resbots are getting to work, trying to patch up whatever they can. Incisor now, on the front. Duking it out. That is, wow, that's an almost entirely resurrected army. Look at all that. I would say more of this army is resurrected than not as we head into the blue base right now. Another gigantic wave of incisors. We need the commander's D-gun or something to efficiently deal with all this. Or, hear me out here, 2 pounders. Yeah. Well, it's too late in retrospect is always, of course, 2020. Yeah, there we go. There's the pounders. Look how good they are against those clumped up light tanks. But man, the damage has just already been done. Nothing that the blue commander Alexi can really do here. The backline has been swept away as well, as those light tanks are more than happy to blast down anything they can find. They've stopped just outside this mech's area here as well, but I think it will be only a matter of time, yep, before they move forward. And you can see the energy and metal advantages beginning to grow rapidly. A hard-fought battle, to say the absolute very least, but yeah, GG is called. Alexi 5000 is forced to relent. Boom goes the commander, and it will be Victor 12 that takes the lead at 3-2 in this very, very close call. Best of 5 1v1 high-level series. Thanks a ton for watching if you made it to the very end, and I sure hope you enjoyed. I'm always happy to hear feedback about what you guys enjoy, and specifically about how you feel about these 1v1 series. I'm really happy to cast them, and I would love to see more. If you're thinking about submitting a series to me, feel free to take a look. If if you're one of those players that skirmishes 1v1 very often, and you'd like to send your replay, I would definitely encourage it. I'm happy to take a look at specifically series of matches, right? If you've got a best of 3 or a best of 5, feel free to send them my way. Best place to do that would be the Discord, of course, but you're always welcome to message me as well. And I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next game of Beyond Our Reason. Peace out, everybody.